Irish Media Network. We entertain.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to Irish Media Network Sports Update. I'm your host, Joe Caulfield. Welcome to the show. Now, as always, this week, we're going to be talking about everything that's happening in the world of sport, particularly in Ireland this week. So, as you know, we entered phase 2 of the government's roadmap on Monday. As a result of that, athletes across 21 sports have been allowed to return to training at a 15-player capacity. In addition to that, as we kind of spoke about a little bit in the last show, the GAA have published their roadmap for return to play, and the IRFU have announced 2 interprovincial fixtures for the 22nd and the 23rd of August. So we're going to be talking about not just those issues, but also all the related issues to all of those pieces of news. And joining me on this week's show to do so is former Irish Independent and current RTE sports journalist, host of RTE2FM's Game On, Marie Crowe is on the show. How are things, Marie?
How are you? Good, yeah, very good. You?
Excellent. Did you get up to anything wild or exciting this week?
No, I was just working all week. Busy, but it's actually been a really good week from a work point of view because for the last nearly 4 months we haven't had anything to talk about in terms of action, besides the German Football League, which we wouldn't have a huge amount of interest in over here. I mean, it was sport and it was great, but now we're kind of starting to look at what's coming down the track. Have some previews. We had Stephen Kelly on the show last night looking ahead to the Premier League next week, which was brilliant to actually go through a little bit of team news. It was Dele Alli getting a suspension, which was terrible for him, but I mean, straight away we're talking about he's going to miss the Man United match and the consequences of that, and then you're just looking at manager quotes and what they mean. And Liverpool played yesterday in a friendly game. They beat Blackburn 6-0, so we're going through that. So it's brilliant. I feel kind of turned a corner now because we have some dates. You mentioned some of them in your intro there. We know when things are coming back. There's lots of news happening then with the GA, and we'll chat about that very, very soon. So yeah, it's been a really good week, and I just feel that we're starting to move forward now from a sports point of view. There's excitement. Actually, earlier in the week as well, I was out in the National Aquatic Centre. Oliver Dingley was back diving, so I went out to watch him for a while and did an interview with him, which was brilliant. The swimmers were back in the pool as well. The athletes were back on the track. So yeah, it's been a good week.
Yeah, I actually caught that show. You weren't tempted to get up in the high dive and give it a go, no?
Oh wow! I suppose I hadn't paid too much attention to how high they were. Anytime I'd ever been out there, I'd kind of been there with the swimmers. It was the first time I'd actually been there to check out the divers, and well, you'd want to be mad to go up on them, really. And then to do all the somersaults and the gymnastic moves which they do when they come off it. It's phenomenal. They're super athletes, and so skilled.
Of course, yeah. I'd actually love to see them in practice or in competition. More so, I would have loved to have been there the day that Marcus Horan, after coming off the Ireland match, went off the high dive.
I know, what a story. I can just imagine him as well. And seriously, next time you're out there, just have
What's the height, Marie?
I don't know what it is, but it's really high. It's it's like a cliff. It's that high.
No, but you're right. Look, it's great to kind of be out of the doldrums a little bit, to have start dates back, to kind of have that anticipation for kind of covering games that are going to come up, and just to have things to talk about. This whole period of lockdown has really shown me that myself and my dad's relationship is pretty much 85% of talking about sport, because we had nothing to talk about for the last 2 months.
It's funny, you say that, and we've had some players on, and their fathers would have been hurlers and footballers, and their mothers as well. And you're thinking, what are you actually talking about at the breakfast table now? Because sports would have been your whole life, and your all their identities were wrapped up in it, and your sense of purpose and everything, and then that's all gone without you even knowing it. And yeah, I suppose everybody's kind of getting to know each other in ways because you're spending so much time together. But even from just the game on point of view, for the first few weeks, I was really nervous. I was like, how are we going to keep going? But people were great. The sports stars were absolutely brilliant, just to give their time. Now they weren't doing anything, which did help, because you could text them and say, oh, do you want to come on the show? And they're like, yeah, and then go back to them at a time, because that they're actually free. It's going to get really tricky now, but they were just so brilliant to take the time, and they understood that we're still trying to do a job as sports journalists. We need to cover sport. We want to keep the show going. And they gave so much time, and it was good crack. I was a bit sick of saying, oh, what are you doing for lockdown? I didn't want to be asking that question again, but yeah, like there was a lot of benefits to it. I hope after all of this that it keeps up again and people will still want to talk. I don't know if they will, but like they were great. Like fair play to the athletes and the sports stars for being sound and just keeping us entertained with their stories and their advice. And like even TJ Reid doing his hurling classes online, like for the kids, like that was fantastic. Andy Moran as well in his gym in Mayo was doing runs every day. Like I think they helped a lot, even though we weren't seeing them on the pitch. They were still giving back a lot.
Yeah, and I suppose it is that kind of sense of community, although it might be virtual community. If you're part of a Zoom class with TJ or Andy and other people in it, you have that sense of removed community, or kind of a group training session, albeit in your living room on your own.
Yeah, big time. And
At least
like
you're part of something like.
Yeah, I did the TJ Reid one, and they thought that he was talking to them, so it was hilarious. But even like to hear them say like they were struggling a little bit, like we had Oregon on one evening, and it was quite early in the lockdown, and there didn't seem like there was going to be any hope for GA to come back on, and you could tell that he was down about it because he loves it and it's such a big part of his life, and it's his sport. And he was straight up about it. He was finding it hard. He wanted it to come back, and he missed it. And it was okay to feel like that as well. And like one thing I struggled with a bit was that there was all this terrible stuff happening in the world, and I just missed sports and I wanted it back. And I almost felt guilty saying every day, going, still missing it. I'd still like it to come back. Like, can it come back, please? I know that health is the most important thing, but it would be great to get something back, to find a way to get it back behind closed doors or whatever way, make, shape or form, in people's gardens, whatever, just to have something. But it's back now anyway.
It is indeed. But funny enough, something you touched on there I wanted to talk about to you anyway. You were saying how people are so wrapped up in sport, and particularly inter-county players. Like, there's a period of your life there for possibly 10 years. And you're completely obsessed with it. You're consumed by it. You have to be. You're part of a group dynamic with one unifying goal. You put a lot of your life on hold in the pursuit of achieving that goal. And in addition to that, then there's the support structure, there's a social element to it. You define yourself as a county player for a lot of people. And it can be very difficult for people to step away from that. And one of the great deterrents to people retiring is the loss of that group, because it's now been imposed on people and they've had a bit of time to kind of reflect on, something. Being at home, my family more is actually quite enjoyable. I don't miss the group as much as I thought I would. Do you think that'll result in possibly people stepping away from inter-county careers after this?
I don't. I think, like, first of all, anyone that plays inter-county, it's their choice to do it. They do it because they want to. They do it because they absolutely love it. It's something that they have aspired to. It's like anything. It's a goal. It's an aim. It's a dream. And I think, if anything, this is going to make people want it more. I've interviewed a couple of people over the last few weeks, and I've said, have you reflected on this time? And they've almost zoned in on something that they haven't achieved yet. Like people who've had Lions tours or went off to play with Ireland but haven't won anything with their club. So it's like, right, well, that's my next goal. That's what I want to do. It might not have mattered to me as much before, but now that I've taken a step back, I realise that I that's something that I need to do. And, I thought that I had forever to do it. So I think there'll be an awful lot of that. I think people will be maybe resetting goals. But you see, sports people are so competitive. So, like, that's innate. Like, you don't get to the top of your sports career unless you're really, really, really competitive. And I don't think you can switch that off. So if anything, I'd say that the people who have had sport taken away from them are going to say, well, okay, there's a bit of a reality here, and maybe I don't have 10 more years to get what I want to get. I have to do it now. It's my dream to go and win. It might just be like 2 rounds of a championship. It might be to get to an Olympics, but whatever it is, now that you might not have the luxury of that. It might not be up to you anymore. So you got to make every single minute count. So I think when people come out of this, what they're going to do is make it count, because it's not forever. Like, you cannot be an athlete forever. You can have long careers in certain sports, but you cannot be at the peak of your powers all the time. So anyone who's in the peak of their powers right now, they're going to want to try and achieve something, because who knows what's going to come down the track now. And I think this, it's kind of like an injury or being dropped. You just, it's unexpected, and it's trying to deal with it and reassess afterwards. And like anyone I know that was injured or dropped or missed out, they come back stronger and they wanted more.
And actually, that's the flip side of it. It's the side of the coin that I wasn't really thinking about, because it can really refocus the priorities, how easily it can all be taken away from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for anyone, especially who is maybe like advancing on their career a little bit, I do feel sorry for a lot of people who have put their lives on hold, for an example, for an Olympics. We've heard of women who have put off having children because they want to have an Olympics. They haven't gone for jobs, and, like amateur sports people who have just kind of been living hand to mouth to make it to an Olympic Games. If you're an amateur athlete, you're never going to be very rich. Well, most of them aren't anyway. And it's just purely to get to that goal and to kind of fulfill your potential as a sports person. And, that extra year can make a huge difference in your life and your plans. And, it's difficult. Anyone who's qualified, it's great for them, but I'd hate to be in a situation where you were trying to get to an Olympics and you hadn't qualified yet, and your whole world is turned upside down. So there'll be plenty of people trying to deal with that as well. And I'd say, like, in the lockdown, the sports psychologists were pretty busy with sports people everywhere, because you can't go out and train with your team. Everybody is trying to make marginal, trying to get small gains and improve and get an edge. And you can only do so much training on your own. So like mental sharpness will be something that people will have been working on. So they'll have been busy.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing. It's terrible actually. I'm looking forward to seeing what people are like the other side of this. I'll be like, I'm going to be so judgmental, going, oh, he worked a little bit harder now than the other guy did. And
he's a bit of a belly coming back. He hit McDonald's last week.
I think if I was a sports person who'd worked really, really hard, when the celebrations for a goal or something, and I had a massive six pack, I'd be showing off. Well, look at all the work that I did over the last while.
Yeah, 100%. And like, you're dead right. I can't wait to get back into it. And like I was saying we had Dennis Caroon and Conor Hussey on the first episode of the show, and I was saying how it's killing me missing the run up to the Interprovincial Championship, because I love it so much. We have dates for a return to training for Club Championship. But I just wanted to ask you about this. The GAA have allowed each county board to structure their own Club Championship. Why did they do that as opposed to giving them a uniform structure to follow?
Well, like, that counties are, like, I think trying to plan anything in a county, well, we've seen how difficult it is for them to try and run off anything. It's like there's always hassle with county championships and trying to get them finished and trying to fit everything in. But look, every county is so different. The setups everywhere. Like, you look at Kerry and Cork, and they have divisionals, and then some counties have dual players, and it would just be too hard to put something uniform into the counties. And I think if they tried to do that the club players would suffer, because I don't think one size fits all for counties. I think we're all well aware of that. And county boards like to do things their own way as well. They're very familiar with their own setups, with their own teams, with their own clubs, and how ththings work. They know what they can fit into in certain times. Some counties only have like a handful of hurling teams, but have loads of football teams, and you have to treat everybody fairly and treat them same, and try and get as much action for the club players as possible. And if Croke Park put an edict on top of everybody, I don't think it would happen. You gotta let the experts in the counties try and do the best for their teams and for their clubs, and I think most of them are going to try and do that. I don't know if all of them will, but I'd say we're going to have an interesting few weeks ahead, just as dates and times and fixtures for clubs start to come to light, and they already are a little bit.
Yeah, and just touching on that, I see that Mayo have already published their club championship structure, and it's largely unchanged. They're going to have three groups of four playing each other, semi-final, final, finishing up on the 18th to the 20th of September, giving them almost a full run-in of county training. Which brings me on to my next point. County managers have access to their players from the 14th of September, and you touched on this during the week on the show. How likely are county managers to stick to the honour system and not try and engage players before then?
I'd love to say that I think they're absolutely all going to be great, and in the spirit of fairness, they are going to they're going to just meet up for the first time in mid-September. But like, there's so much anecdotal evidence out there now already that counties are back. Like, some of them haven't gone away either, and they've been doing so much in the last while that they're just going to continue. There isn't going to be any layoffs, and like, it's unfair and it's hard, but like, it's like, everybody wants to win, so, and I'm sure the players want to win, and like, I can't imagine too many players saying to their managers, "Oh, look, we don't want to go back." Like, they all want to go back, they all want to win. Like, this is the championship for them. It's not right or fair on the club players. There's going to be an awful lot of hassle for it, but I think everybody would be naive to think that that counties aren't back training and meeting up and doing stuff in undercover, because like, that's always been the case. We saw it with the winter training ban years back. We've seen it with club month. Things just don't work out like that, and when there's so much at stake, and if one county is here and another county is training, they're going to want to do that, and the players are as well. So I'd say there'd be very few who are going to be adhering to the rules, and I mean, I don't see Croke Park making an example of anybody either, because you'd have to be making an example of everybody then.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the videos coming out from behind closed doors, from like a shaky WhatsApp video of lads down in Ballyhonus training and stuff like that.
Oh, totally. Like, I've seen some myself. I was in a college the other day, and there was 2 club teams training in small groups, and
right.
That's just the way it is. Like, they're doing it. They're back. They've been off for a long time, and okay, like club, fair enough. They're very close to coming back. I've always said I thought the GA pitches should have been open a little bit earlier. I think they should be open now, because teams are training. That's the reality of it. Like, they are out there training, so it would be great to see them in a safe environment training, but they're not there yet. So look, that's going to happen very soon, and that's fine. They will be back together, but it's kind of that we also know that county teams are going to be doing their own thing as well. Like, so that's going to be another issue. And then I'm sure people are going to start speaking out. I know that the CPA have come out already today, and they've got an awful lot of questions for how this is going to be monitored, and what the punishment and consequences are, and if there are going to be any for one, county boards who don't give the full run into the clubs, and 2, for the county managers who demand that their players go and train with them and not with the clubs. So I think that probably the next few weeks is just going to be the start of it, but there's going to be a can of worms opened, I think, very, very shortly.
Yeah, and look, it kind of comes back to what you were saying about the competitive nature of county players, county managers. It's the nature of the beast that they're all going to want to have an edge over each other.
Totally, yeah. Like, I mean, like, we all play sports. Like, I can't sit here and say that if I was given the opportunity to go and run around with my teammates, that I wouldn't do it now. Like, I find it very hard. And, if I had a championship match in a couple of months, and I knew it was on in a couple of months, like, I wouldn't want to be taking a back seat. Like, I'd be going home. So like it's very hard to go out and judge the players anyway for wanting to do it, because everybody has been very good during the lockdown. But look, it's kind of the conversation that we have all the time. What about the club players? Shouldn't they come first if this is not their time? And they are getting a good run in the JR, trying to give them their time, but it's the balance then between, like, as always, the county and how do you get it right, and nobody's found a solution yet, and I don't know if they will.
I doubt 2020 will be the year that they
Let's just get through it and get a championship and try and get to Croke Park with a few fans in there.
Yeah, exactly. Moving on just a little bit to rugby. So the Interpros are set up for the 22nd and 23rd of August, which is fantastic. It'll be great just to see interprovincial competition back. It's going to be great. A couple of things I want to talk to you, and it's not specifically about that, but there's been a lot of talk about setting up a world league, and particularly in this period of lockdown, because they stand to lose so much money, so much revenue from lack of attendance at games, that it seems that they're really going to press on to this proposed 12-team world league over October and November across 2 hemispheres. What's your take on that? What's your opinion of it?
Yeah, like I think that things are going to change, and everybody needs to be prepared for what's coming down the track, and that it's going to be different.
Hmm.
There's a big meeting going on next week between all the powers that be in World Rugby, and I think when they come off the back of that, that it will be clearer. I think that rugby could do better with a global calendar. There's no getting away from that.
Hmm.
It's a sport that probably does need more exposure and will benefit from more exposure. But the bottom line is that player welfare has to come first, because like it is a sport that players need to be managed in. They have a very strong voice, so it'll be really interesting to see what way they come out on it. But I'm kind of excited about it as well, because like it's been criticised for so long that we don't get to see the best of rugby. There's rugby happening, and now actually this weekend when Super Rugby comes back in New Zealand, we are going to get to see it, and it'll be exciting. But yeah, I think it should be. I think that they should give it a chance. That we need to hear what's on the table. Like there's lots of things muted about changes, like in even the Six Nations moving, all the European competitions shifting a little bit, and but if it's better for the players and we get to see a little bit more of it, then I'm kind of open to changes in the calendar.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Look, there's two things to consider: player welfare, and I was reading Neil Francis' piece in The Independent, and he was talking about Northern Hemisphere players going to the Southern Hemisphere in October and then back to the Northern Hemisphere in November, playing 8 games over those 2 months, and it seems extremely onerous from the players' point of view. Having said that, if they work it out that the travel obligations are done sensibly, and they can actually kind of have recovery time and all that sort of thing, I'd love to be seeing Southern Hemisphere teams, because you really only see it in the autumn internationals briefly, and then World Cups every 4 years.
I know. Look at us thinking about ourselves again.
We're the worst.
Yeah, I think it's. I'm like you. I'd like to see something different. I'd like to see a little bit more, but who knows?
Yeah. Well, look, thankfully we've loads to talk about at the moment, and as the summer progresses, we will continue to do so. Thanks so much for your time this morning. I really appreciate it, and I'll be tuning in again 6 to 8 this evening for yourself, Dunners and Ruby, on Game On at 2 o'clock.
Brilliant. I actually really enjoyed it, and it's such a good week to be on it as well, because we do have, like, we didn't even get to touch on the Premier League. It's going to be back next week. Hopefully the League of Ireland will be back soon as well. So I think the next few weeks things will become a lot clearer with that. But thanks a million. I really enjoyed it, and thanks for listening to the show as well.
Well, come here, as the month develops and we have more to talk about, you're welcome back anytime, Marie. So we might pencil you in for again.
Mayo Championship. We'll do a big show on that.
Possibly.
Thanks
a million. And that was our show this week, folks. Thanks a million to Marie for joining us. Thank you so much, as always, for joining us yourselves and tuning in. We will be back again next week with another show. In the meantime, look after yourself, be safe, and be good. Take it easy.
Irish Media Network.